Okay, good afternoon. This is my philosophy of change and leadership, furthering what we talked about yesterday in my video. So, beginning, there's 5 simple steps, in my opinion, to philosophy, and this is my philosophy on change. So, change is uncomfortable, but it's necessary. And at the end of the day, we'll talk about here in a second with fear. People are going to be scared of change, whether it be stakeholders, shareholders, employees, all of them under the same umbrella, realistically, are not going to enjoy change and are going to be uncomfortable with it. But how can we make them comfortable with it? How can we make them step out of their normal routine, step out of the skills they've already learned, and develop new skills, develop new talents that can be put on display for our company? And furthering that, that's growth from adapting. So by adapting to that new change, getting out of the comfort zone, they're going to grow individually, grow as a person. And then maybe they outgrow us as a result of adapting to it. They grow new skills and stuff that gets them picked up, grows their salary, grows their portfolio and stuff, their resume, to further career opportunities. I mean, if people can become successful from within your company, that shows how good of a company you are to set them up for success later on. Even if it isn't in their company, at the end of the day, they're still coming back to you. There's still a reference for you to say, look, I put this person here, I developed them here because I changed this about them. I changed this in my company. They adapted so well to it that they outgrew us. And then that's moving on to fear. Going back to change being uncomfortable, people are going to be scared. But can you sell them on the fact? Can you communicate? Going into the fourth one, can you communicate and sell them in a way that makes them not scared of it? Put change as a good thing, not as a scary thing. Put it as maybe your daily routine will be different, but maybe it'll be more interesting. Maybe you'll be more involved, have even more want and seek more drive to do your job in a sense as a result of just being used to the change and adapting to it. And then change should always be intentional. Change should not be the result of some like crazy idea you just come up with one night. There should be smart goals behind it. There should be important steps taken to develop the change, and we'll talk about that shortly, about the steps that should be taken before change so that you can develop a good philosophy for it. Moving on, my experience with change. Coming up, transitioning a lot between schools. I grew up going to a Spanish immersion school where we were only allowed to speak Spanish, absolutely no English. So I struggled with English grammar. Moving on from that school, leaving after 4th grade, and going to an English-speaking school where I had never been taught English grammar before, and English is not an easy language to learn, but I had to adapt. I had to grow into learning the English language and really understanding direct objects, nouns, adverbs, adjectives, to understand how proper sentence structure works so I don't have to use Grammarly all the time and stuff like we have now. And then I switched my senior year of high school as well, and that was a big change, going from a academy that I was at back into my school district, meeting those same people I was with all the way back in elementary school for Spanish immersion, but now meeting them in high school as a grown man and stuff. And then moving on from there, I went to university, and university has been a big step. Luckily for me, the academy I was in really set me up in a way where I feel like I've really succeeded in new roles here at the university in terms of paper writing, group projects, and stuff like that, where it's something I've already done where maybe other people have not already done. And then moving on to group projects and leadership roles. Look, being in your class, Dr. Gross, with some of the things I did my freshman year, sophomore year, taught me so much. With people may not get their job done, but at the end of the day, the projects still do. The work still needs to get done. Even in professional setting, when I've worked jobs, somebody may not do nothing all day. You may tell them to do something, and they look at you like, come on, man, I'm just here for a paycheck. And still the job has to get done. They're not going to pull their end. You got to pull their end. Because if not, it'll just come back on you, and it's not worth that. It's never that hard to make it, to not just do it. It will eventually hurt them more than it will you. You may develop the skills to where they're not even needed anymore. And then that, as since you've then taken that role, your company will look at you like, well, we don't even need whoever it is, so that we can just let go of them and maybe up the salary of this other person and take that role on. And then learning new technology. Graduating high school, I feel like AI was not as big as it is now for sure. So now it's important to know when to use AI, how to use AI, develop into those new technologies that are constantly nowadays coming out, and how, as a young person, can I really bound myself into those new technologies to make them something where I stand out. Like currently I'm doing an AWS program, becoming a certified in AI. The only reason I'm doing that is because nowadays you really need that, so that people will look at you and be like, okay, if AI takes place in our company, he can understand AI, understand how it works, how he can get the most out of it. Even if that I may not be an IT person and stuff, I still understand the concept well enough to further it. And then adjusting to new expectations professionally and in school. I'm going from high school to college. There's obviously new expectations, whether it be in soccer or in school, being an honors program, having to do research projects during the semester while also dealing with 6 classes at the same time. You're taking almost 20 credit hours every semester. It's a lot of work. But at the end of the day, I'm still trying to achieve those highest grades possible, trying to achieve the best I can out of that. And how can I do all those courses and still take something out of all of them? Still take something to where I can change and I can develop into something better and develop a new skill from them. Then assessing risk and change. So there's 4 things here. Pros and cons. Always got to. One of the biggest things I think going into a change, you should always first list out pros and cons. It's just simple. It's easy to do. The pros should always outweigh the cons. If the cons outweigh the pros, then it can immediately be thrown out. Because you don't need a bunch of cons. If there's only a few cons, that's a good thing compared to the pros. And then short-term versus long-term effects. So if it hurts you short-term but really helps you long-term, then maybe it's worth it. If it can help you short and long-term, that's great. That's not always realistic, but sometimes you have to put in a negative, maybe short-term, so that maybe in a year or 2 years or 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, most plans are a 5-year plan, you're really successful in 5 years. You've taken a hit in the first year maybe to implement AI, but then in 5 years, your AI is a big new thing and you're developing your product or business globally and making something big out of it. And then impact on others. How will it impact your employees, and then shareholders, stakeholders if you make this change? Is it going to impact them so negatively to where they're never going to buy into the change? Or will they buy into it as a result of the positive impact it can have on them? Can you sell them, like I said earlier, with your communication of how the change can help them? At the end of the day, they're not going to buy into the change unless they feel that the change will help them professionally, or there's some kind of incentive behind going into the change. And then emotional readiness. You have to be ready for whatever is coming to the change. If you're a manager in this instance, you have to be ready for whatever could be thrown your way. People are going to come to your door and question you and come at you with all different kinds of comments, regards, surveys that you may give them, and they tell you that you don't know what you're doing. You have to have belief in what you're doing, though. Can you have that belief in it to where you can sell other people on it and get a team behind you to sell even more people? Lead by example, set an example for other people so that we can be successful in making that change happen. And then how should people think about and lead change effectively was a question I asked ChatGPT about. And ChatGPT responded with, change should be approached with clear goals, open communication, and empathy. Leaders should involve others and provide support during transitions. And moving on from this, with my agree versus disagree, I agree communication is very important. You see this in the quote I got from ChatGPT, that one of the first things they mention is it's communicating by a leader to employees of how the change is going to happen. Then having the empathy, like I said, emotional readiness to deal with whatever may come your way. Someone may complain a lot. You may cause a lot of distress. But are you empathetic enough to be like, I understand that, but this is how I can help you? You got to shift that empathy into selling the change once again. But I must say they do make it seem a lot easier than it is when it comes to communicating it. And then they underestimate fear. They talk about the empathy of it, but people are going to be even more scared. You can't just be empathetic. You can't feel bad in a sense. You have to feel bad and deal with it. You can't just feel bad for them and be like, it's okay. At the end of the day, being empathetic comes down to maybe feeling bad, but maybe you feel bad, but at the end of the day, it's your change. You're sold on it. If they're not sold on it, you feel bad, but it is what it is, and you just have to move on from that and hope that you can develop them to not be afraid of it, to sell them on that it is a good thing, that getting them comfortable may make them more comfortable down the line. Next, not the next question I asked. My company's, why companies change, and this is my view on it. Personally, I feel that technology, competition, customer needs, and financial survival are the biggest needs for change. If you talk about the first one, obviously I've mentioned it so much. Technology, especially, I feel like since COVID, I guess, technology has changed drastically, and it continues to change drastically with AI, all these. I mean, there's so much going on now with people being let go because they just aren't needed anymore because technology can do the job for people. You go to the grocery store now. Grocery stores are filled with people that only go to self-checkout. People avoid human interaction. I did DoorDash for a little bit. That people avoid human interaction because they just don't want to come to the door. They don't want to get checked out by an actual human being. They don't want to have that human interaction. So people are now going to technology because it's selling more. People are have more of an impact and want to just go to technology, do it all themselves, and having someone check themselves out. That's like a tax write-off. It feels like probably for some companies. You're not having to pay someone. I mean, it's people doing a job for themselves. Sure, the technology may be costly to implement, but I really don't know how expensive it is in comparison to just buying cash register on its own. And I mean, I know as a kid and stuff, you used to like buy those fake cash register stuff, and you really enjoy it if it's not a job. So I guess it works out. And then competition. Competition will always adapt and become stronger. So you need to adapt, not necessarily with them, but in a way to keep up with competition or even excel past them. Can you be the company that changes so that your competitors want to be like you? That's why many companies put in patents and stuff when they develop new technology, is because some technology can really put you ahead of other people. And having the ability to patent it, you look at some of the electric cars that have been implemented in the past years. Tesla is so far ahead of everybody else. Rivian's up there too. Compared to like your Ford and stuff that struggled to get the Mustang Mach-E on the road and staying on the road because they don't have that technology like Tesla, like Rivian does, where they've been developing it for years and understand it. And you're starting to see a bit more success in it now, but most of that comes from paying out Tesla or Rivian employees to take what they've learned, like I mentioned earlier, into Ford and developing Ford in a way to keep up with their competition. So you got to change so you can keep up. And then customer needs. So this is a big important thing. Customers will always have needs. As we develop, there will be new needs that have to be had at whatever company it is. And you have to adapt to those needs. The big saying is customers are always right. And some people may not agree with that. At the end of the day, the customer is the one paying for the product. It is important you value their needs and assess them and get them done to the best way you can. Even if you maybe have to change something. Maybe you have to take a little bit of a loss to sell something even more to a customer down the line, or you set up a contract where you know you're getting paid regularly. And then financial survival. This is where like companies like Blockbuster and Kodak that I mentioned earlier can be referenced. They didn't financially survive because they did not change. So it is important to change so that you can keep afloat, so you don't go bankrupt. You can keep your company going on for the future and moving on for generations. My next question in ChatGPT was, why do companies change? So based off the same thing, I just mentioned those four that I mentioned. Let's see what ChatGPT had to say in consideration of those four. So companies change to remain competitive. Similar to what I said, you got to be competitive in the market. Respond to market trends. This is customer needs. So very simple, clear what I kind of meant. And then adopt new technologies, similar to what I said as well. And then meet customer expectations. This is customer needs as well. Similar to market trends, it's what people expect, the new trends, what's coming up. So mostly I agree with ChatGPT's response in terms of company competition and technology. But the one thing I do not agree with is they did not speak at all. When I got the transcript from them, it was that short. They didn't involve anything about how much stress it puts on employees, the fear factor of meeting all of these things. It's a lot of things to meet, steering on to competition, going into technology, meeting customer needs. They may have to take a hit so that they can meet those needs, develop into those trends. And it's really stressful, I would say, especially for marketing people, to be so involved in trends to always keep up with what's going on. Nowadays, there's so many trends. There's so much social media and whatever else. Trends change so often. So how, like, especially, I don't even know how closed companies like boutiques and stuff keep up, because it feels like girls when it comes to trends. Their trends, the change is so drastic constantly. So I don't know how they're not hitting a loss, because by the time you buy a product, the trend's basically changed. So how can you get a product in, know about the trend fast enough to where you can get it in, sell it, refresh, new trend, new this? And it was very logical in a way. It didn't see the bigger aspect of it. In a sense, it kind of dwelled it down into one simple logical explanation, and it's deeper than just a one sentence answer. And then my philosophy as a manager, these are 5 key steps to just kind of how you can go about it. The first is you got to be transparent. One of the first things you should do as a manager is let people know of change, let people know it's coming, so they can ready themselves and know that they are being heard about it. So being heard about it goes into the next one. Listen to what is said by your shareholders, by your stakeholders, by your employees, so that you can take feedback. Your first idea may not make any sense as a manager to them. And they may give you feedback to where you can develop a clear understanding for them, develop a clear understanding for yourself, and maybe become more successful because of it and develop something that is even better than you originally had planned out. 2 minds will always be greater than one. It may butt heads, but at the end of the day, coming to terms with 2 minds is better than one is important, because it gives you so much more ability to look at what can come out of something. One person looking at something may look at it a certain way. Some person may look at it and look at something completely different. We talked about it today in personal psychology. It's extremely subjective, some things are. So I may say something and an employee may take it this way. So then I have to further the transparency of it so they fully understand it. And this goes on to the next one. That's involving employees. All of this is basically around the same aspect of getting people involved, having more than one head in it, so you can develop the best overall project. And then leading by example. So having belief in what you're doing is the biggest aspect to leading by example. If you believe in it, other people will believe in it. If you change yourself, other people will change themselves, because they will see you doing it, see the manager doing it, and be like, okay, he knows what he's doing. He really believes in it. I feel I can be confident in knowing that he's confident in what he's doing. He feels it's going to succeed. So I believe that he will succeed in what he's doing. And this definitely comes from having reputation, I guess, in a sense of what you've done so far in your career. Because if you have a great reputation, leading by example will be very simple for you, because people you'll have that rep to where it's easy to sell your example, because people have the belief that you will be successful. And then providing training. I spoke on it yesterday. It's important to have meetings, to have training courses set up, and maybe get people in, hire new people to train people on things that you've not learned yet. It's not been learned yet in the company, to set up better AI, better tech, better ability to develop any customer needs and stuff, to better human relations and train people on how to do those tasks and do those roles. And then how I would lead change, these are my 5 things, is the first thing I do is be clear, be transparent, explain why. And then, like I said, ask for feedback, hear and listen to what people have to come. This is very similar to what I just said in the philosophy. And then prepare people, have those training courses, have those meetings, set them up for success, and then support them in it. If people don't have support, don't have compliments, if they have that negative energy from you, that look down upon almost towards them, if in a way, they're not going to be happy, they're not going to be successful in what they're doing. So how can you compliment them and give them the, I don't know the term for it, but the sense of pride almost in their work, that you are proud of them. And then evaluate progress. So like I just said, you compliment them, but also be honest. If they're not doing something right, it's important to go ahead and evaluate it now. You're already developing a change. Why not change something else if they can't do something correctly? It's changing something so they can be successful. And that comes from maybe being honest in your evaluations of them. And then final reflection. I think the biggest thing, change is difficult, but it's always going to be necessary in order to keep up. ChatGPT provides logic. Humans bring emotion into it, though. So the biggest aspect with ChatGPT is it tends to look at just the logical answer and not the actual human response of it all, where humans tend to bring emotion into everything. That's why you have to be empathetic. You have to be caring in a way as a manager to deal with human relations and stuff. Have a little bit of HR in you to be able to deal with whatever may come your way in that aspect. And then the final sentence for this is leaders balance both. And that's the biggest thing is, are you logical in your reasoning for change? And are you emotional enough to develop that change into your employees, to listen to your employees and have the ability to command the stress and the whatever may come your way as a result of the change? And that's the biggest aspect to it. And that's my philosophy on why change is so big.